The morning sun glinted off the pristine windows of Elite Motors, Los Angeles' most exclusive luxury car dealership. Inside, the showroom sparkled with chrome and leather, millions of dollars worth of automotive excellence arranged like jewels in a crown. Among the gleaming Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Bentleys, a figure in worn jeans and a simple black t-shirt stood quietly, studying a silver Porsche 911 GT3. The contrast couldn't have been starker. While salespeople in $1,000 suits attended to clients draped in designer labels, this man looked like he'd wandered in from a construction site. His scuffed boots and well-worn leather jacket spoke of practicality rather than prestige. Yet there was something in his bearing, a quiet dignity that set him apart from the usual tire kickers. What happened next would leave everyone completely speechless. But before we dive deeper into this extraordinary encounter that would teach us all a powerful lesson about humility and human decency, let me know where you're watching from today. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to join our community. We've got another incredible true story coming your way tomorrow that you won't want to miss. The dealership bustled with its usual morning energy, the aroma of expensive leather mixed with fresh coffee from the executive lounge. Sales representatives moved with practiced grace, their polished shoes clicking against marble floors. Throughout the showroom, the soft murmur of negotiations played out like a carefully orchestrated symphony. In the midst of this choreographed luxury, the man in simple clothes moved with unhurried purpose. His fingers traced the curves of the Porsche, not with the reverence of someone out of their depth, but with the appreciation of someone who understood true craftsmanship. His face remained partially hidden behind sunglasses and a baseball cap, his beard adding to the everyman appearance. From his glass-walled office overlooking the showroom, Richard Mansfield, the dealership's general manager, spotted the incongruous figure. Richard was everything his position suggested. Immaculately groomed, wearing a bespoke suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, and carrying himself with the air of someone who believed his authority extended beyond the dealership walls. "Who let that vagrant in?" Richard muttered to his assistant, his lip curling with distaste. "This isn't a public museum." The assistant, a young woman named Sarah, glanced down at the showroom floor. "He just walked in, sir. Should I have security escort him out?" Richard adjusted his Rolex and straightened his tie. "No, I'll handle this personally. We can't have people like that lowering the tone of our establishment." As Richard descended the spiral staircase, his Italian leather shoes announcing his approach, the man continued his quiet examination of the Porsche. He seemed oblivious to the judgment heading his way, or perhaps simply unconcerned by it. "Excuse me." Richard's voice cut through the showroom's ambient noise like a knife. "Can I help you with something?" The man turned slowly, removing his sunglasses with a deliberate motion. "Just looking at this beautiful machine," he replied, his voice carrying a warmth that contrasted sharply with Richard's icy tone. "I see," Richard said, his eyes scanning the man's attire with obvious disdain. "Well, I'm afraid this particular model starts at $180,000. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing at a different establishment." A slight smile played at the corners of the man's mouth. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm quite comfortable here." Richard's face hardened. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but we cater to a certain clientele. Our cars require serious financial commitment, and frankly," he gestured vaguely at the man's appearance, "you don't seem to fit that profile." Several customers and sales staff had begun to notice the exchange, their conversations trailing off as they sensed the growing tension. The man's calm demeanor never wavered, even as Richard's condescension became more pronounced. "Appearances can be deceiving," the man said softly. "I've found that what's on the outside rarely tells the whole story." Richard scoffed. "In my experience, appearances tell me everything I need to know. Now, if you're not here to make a purchase, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "I am here to make a purchase," the man replied, his tone remaining even. "I'd like to test drive this GT3. The request seemed to push Richard over the edge. His face flushed red, and his voice rose several decibels. "A test drive? Do you have any idea what kind of insurance requirements we have? What kind of financial verification? This isn't a toy store where you can just play with whatever catches your eye." By now, the entire showroom had fallen silent. Customers pretended to examine cars while clearly eavesdropping, and sales staff exchanged uncomfortable glances. Sarah had descended from the office, hovering uncertainly near the confrontation. "I understand your concerns," the man said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Perhaps this will help clarify things." He produced a black American Express Centurion card and held it out to Richard. The manager's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the exclusive card, but his pride wouldn't allow him to back down. "Anyone can flash a credit card," Richard sneered, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. "We need proper verification, references, proof of income." "Richard," Sarah interjected softly, "maybe we should." "Stay out of this, Sarah," Richard snapped. He turned back to the man. "Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but I've been in this business for 20 years. I know a serious buyer when I see one, and you, sir, are not it." The man's expression remained serene, but there was a subtle shift in his energy. "What makes a serious buyer in your eyes?" he asked. "Someone who respects the value of these machines," Richard declared. "Someone who understands luxury, who appreciates exclusivity, not someone who walks in off the street looking like they just finished a shift at the local garage." "And you believe that respect for value and appreciation for craftsmanship can only exist in expensive suits?" the man questioned, his voice carrying a philosophical weight that seemed to fill the showroom. Richard laughed derisively. "Spare me the philosophy lesson. This is a business, not a meditation retreat. Now, for the last time, I'm asking you to leave before I call security." The man nodded slowly, as if coming to a decision. "Very well. But before I go, let me ask you something. How many people have you turned away based on their appearance? How many potential customers have you lost because they didn't fit your narrow definition of worthiness?" "That's none of your business," Richard spat. "Security." Two uniformed guards appeared from the side office, looking uncomfortable as they approached. The man held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "No need," he said. "I'll leave. But remember this moment, Mr. Mansfield. Remember how you treated someone based solely on their appearance." As the man turned to leave, a voice called out from across the showroom. "Keanu? Keanu Reeves?" The man paused, then turned back with a gentle smile as a young salesman rushed forward, his face a mixture of excitement and embarrassment. "Oh my God, it is you! I'm such a huge fan! I can't believe... Wait, what's happening here?" The color drained from Richard's face as recognition dawned. The murmurs that rippled through the showroom confirmed what he suddenly realized with horror. He had just insulted and attempted to eject one of Hollywood's most beloved and famously humble actors. "Mr. Reeves," Richard stammered, his arrogance evaporating instantly. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry." Keanu removed his cap, his familiar features now unmistakable. "That's exactly the point, isn't it?" he said quietly. "You had no idea who I was, so you treated me with contempt. What if I had been just a regular person who saved for years to buy their dream car? Would that have made your behavior acceptable?" Richard stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Around them, customers and staff watched the scene unfold with rapt attention, many now recording on their phones. "The measure of a person," Keanu continued, "isn't in what they wear or what they drive. It's in how they treat others, especially those they perceive as beneath them." Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "Mr. Reeves, please accept our sincerest apologies. This doesn't represent our values at all. If you'd still like that test drive." Keanu smiled at her kindly. "Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. But I think I'll take my business elsewhere. Not because of how I was treated. I've faced far worse, but because I wouldn't want to give my money to a place that might treat others the same way." Richard found his voice, desperation creeping in. "Please, Mr. Reeves, let me make this right. I was completely out of line. I'll personally ensure you get the best deal possible." "It's not about the deal," Keanu replied. "It's about dignity. Every person who walks through those doors deserves respect, regardless of their appearance or perceived status." He turned to address the gathered crowd. "We live in a world that's too quick to judge, too eager to categorize people based on superficial markers. But real value, real worth, comes from within. It's in how we treat the waiter who serves us, the janitor who cleans our offices, the stranger who might just be having a rough day." Richard's shoulders slumped as the weight of his actions settled on him. "You're right," he admitted. "I've been in this business so long, I forgot that. I became the very thing I used to despise, someone who values image over substance." Keanu studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Recognizing that is the first step. The question is, what will you do with this awareness?" Richard straightened, a new resolve in his eyes. "I'll change. Starting right now. We'll implement new training for all our staff, focusing on treating every customer with equal respect, and I'll personally apologize to anyone I've dismissed based on their appearance." "That's a good start," Keanu acknowledged. He turned to the young salesman who had recognized him. "What's your name?" "Chris, sir. Chris Martinez." "Chris, do you enjoy working here?" Chris glanced nervously at Richard before answering. "Honestly, I love cars, but I've always felt uncomfortable with how we're told to profile customers." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Richard, I have a proposal. Instead of buying a car today, I'd like to invest in your dealership, but only if you make Chris here your new head of customer relations, someone who understands that every person deserves respect." Richard blinked in surprise. "You want to invest in us? After how I treated you?" "I believe in second chances," Keanu replied. "And I believe that businesses can be forces for positive change. But it has to be genuine change, not just words." Chris looked stunned. "Mr. Reeves, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll help create a different kind of luxury dealership," Keanu smiled. "One where the measure of a customer isn't their clothes or their watch, but their passion for automobiles." Richard extended his hand. "Mr. Reeves, you have a deal, and my deepest apologies. You've taught me a valuable lesson today." Keanu shook his hand. "We're all teachers and students in this life, Richard. The key is remaining open to the lessons." As word spread through social media about what had transpired, Elite Motors became known not just for its luxury cars, but for its revolutionary approach to customer service. Richard, true to his word, transformed the culture of the dealership. The story of his confrontation with Keanu Reeves became part of employee training, a reminder that respect should be universal, not conditional. Months later, Keanu returned to Elite Motors, this time greeted warmly by Richard and Chris. The dealership had flourished under its new philosophy, attracting customers who appreciated being valued for their passion rather than their appearance. "You know," Richard said as he handed Keanu the keys to a special-ordered Porsche, "I used to think success was about exclusivity. Now I understand it's about inclusivity, making everyone feel they belong." Keanu smiled as he settled into the driver's seat. That's the kind of success that matters, the kind that lifts others up rather than keeping them out. As he drove away, Richard watched with a mixture of gratitude and wonder. A moment of prejudice had become a catalyst for transformation, all because one man had chosen to respond to contempt with compassion, to judgment with wisdom. Sarah joined Richard at the window. "You know what the best part is?" she said. "He didn't just change our dealership. The story went viral, and now luxury businesses across the country are rethinking how they treat customers." Richard nodded. "He could have destroyed us with a single tweet. Instead, he helped us become better. That's true class." The story of Keanu Reeves at Elite Motors became legendary in the automotive world, but more importantly, it became a parable about the dangers of judgment and the power of grace. It reminded people that beneath the surface differences that divide us, we're all human beings deserving of dignity and respect. In the months that followed, Richard often shared his story at business conferences, not as a tale of celebrity encounter, but as a lesson in humility. "I learned that day that the most expensive suit in the world can't hide a poor character," he would say, "and the simplest clothes can't diminish a great soul." The transformation at Elite Motors inspired other luxury businesses to examine their own practices. Customer service training programs began incorporating the Keanu principle, treating every customer with equal respect regardless of appearance. Business schools added the case study to their curriculum, using it to teach the importance of authentic leadership and genuine customer care. Chris, in his new role as head of customer relations, implemented innovative programs that focused on connecting with customers' passion for automobiles rather than their bank accounts. The dealership began hosting community events, car shows for enthusiasts of all backgrounds, and even started a scholarship program for aspiring automotive engineers from underprivileged communities. Keanu's investment in the dealership went beyond money. He occasionally visited, not as a celebrity, but as a mentor, sharing insights about business ethics and the importance of staying grounded despite success. His presence served as a constant reminder of the values the dealership now embodied. One particularly memorable day, a young woman entered the showroom wearing thrift store clothes and carrying a worn notebook filled with car sketches. In the old days, she might have been politely but firmly guided toward the exit. Instead, Richard himself spent 2 hours with her, discussing her automotive dreams and eventually helping her secure an internship with their service department. She would later become one of their top mechanics and eventually a successful automotive designer. The ripple effects continued to spread. Other celebrities began sharing their own stories of being judged by their appearance, sparking a broader conversation about prejudice in customer service. Social media campaigns emerged with hashtags like "Don't judge a cover by its book" and "Respect every customer," featuring stories of people who had been unfairly dismissed based on their appearance. A year after the incident, Elite Motors held an anniversary celebration. Keanu attended, arriving in his usual understated style, jeans, t-shirt, and that same worn leather jacket. As he entered, every employee, from the newest salesperson to Richard himself, greeted him with genuine warmth and respect. During the celebration, Richard gave a speech that moved many to tears. "A year ago, I thought I knew everything about this business. I thought success was about maintaining exclusivity, about catering only to those who looked the part. I was wrong. Success is about recognizing the humanity in everyone who walks through our doors. It's about understanding that passion for excellence exists in all walks of life." He paused, looking at Keanu. "One man's grace in the face of my arrogance changed not just this dealership, but countless lives. He could have used his fame to humiliate me. Instead, he used it to educate me. That's the kind of power that truly matters." The audience erupted in applause, but Keanu simply smiled and raised his hand for quiet. "The credit belongs to all of you," he said. "You took a difficult moment and turned it into an opportunity for growth. That's not easy. It requires courage to admit when we're wrong and wisdom to change." As the evening progressed, customers and employees shared stories of how the new culture had impacted their lives. An elderly man spoke of how he had been treated with dignity despite arriving in his gardening clothes. A college student described being taken seriously despite her youth and casual attire. A successful businesswoman revealed that she had been testing the dealership's new reputation and had been impressed by the authentic change she witnessed. The transformation of Elite Motors became a business school case study in successful cultural change. Richard was invited to speak at conferences worldwide, sharing his story of how a moment of prejudice became a catalyst for positive transformation. He always emphasized that the change wasn't just about business success, though the dealership's profits had indeed soared, but about recovering a sense of shared humanity in an increasingly divided world. Chris developed a customer service training program that was adopted by luxury retailers across the country. The program, called Beyond Appearances, used the Keanu incident as its foundational teaching moment, emphasizing that true luxury lies in how people are treated, not in what they possess. Keanu's involvement with the dealership continued in unexpected ways. He funded a community automotive education center adjacent to the showroom where underprivileged youth could learn about car maintenance, design, and the business side of the automotive industry. The center became a pipeline for diverse talent into the automotive world, breaking down barriers that had long existed in the industry. The story took on a life of its own, inspiring books, documentaries, and even a feature film that Keanu politely declined to be involved in, saying, "The story isn't about me, it's about the power of transformation and the importance of treating every human being with dignity." 3 years after the incident, Richard received an invitation to speak at a United Nations conference on business ethics and social responsibility. Standing before world leaders and industry titans, he shared his story once more, but with a perspective that had deepened with time. "We often think of discrimination in terms of race, gender, or religion," he said. But there's another form that's so common we barely notice it: the discrimination of appearance, of perceived social status. How many opportunities are lost? How many connections unmade because we judge books by their covers? He described the transformation at Elite Motors not just as a business success story, but as a model for how organizations could become agents of social change. When we changed how we saw our customers, we changed how we saw ourselves. We stopped being gatekeepers of luxury and became facilitators of dreams. The conference led to the establishment of the Reeves Initiative, a global program encouraging businesses to examine and eliminate appearance-based discrimination. Major corporations signed pledges to train their staff in inclusive customer service, and business schools incorporated the principles into their curricula. Meanwhile, at Elite Motors, the culture of respect had become so ingrained that new employees often didn't know the origin story until their orientation. For them, treating every customer with dignity wasn't a policy. It was simply how things were done. One day, 5 years after the original incident, a letter arrived at the dealership addressed to Richard. It was from Keanu, written in his characteristic, thoughtful style. Richard, I've watched with admiration as you've turned a moment of conflict into a movement for change. You've proven that true leadership isn't about being perfect, but about having the courage to grow and the wisdom to help others grow with you. The world needs more leaders like you. Not those who never make mistakes, but those who transform their mistakes into stepping stones for others. With respect and gratitude, Keanu Richard framed the letter and placed it in the employee break room, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of the journey they had all taken together. The story of Keanu Reeves and Elite Motors became more than just a viral moment or a business case study. It became a modern parable about the power of grace, the importance of humility, and the transformative potential that exists in every human interaction. As Richard often said in his speeches, we all have moments when we can choose to judge or to understand, to exclude or to include, to demean or to elevate. The choice we make in those moments doesn't just define us, it shapes the world around us. The impact continued to ripple outward, touching industries far beyond automotive retail. Restaurants began training staff to welcome all guests equally, regardless of attire. Hotels reconsidered their dress codes. Even exclusive clubs started to question whether their exclusivity was based on genuine values or merely superficial markers of status. In the end, what began as a moment of prejudice in a luxury car dealership became a movement for dignity in business. It proved that sometimes the most profound changes come not from grand gestures or corporate initiatives, but from simple moments of human connection, when someone chooses to respond to judgment with wisdom, to contempt with compassion. And Keanu? He continued to live by the principles he had demonstrated that day, showing up in the world with humility and treating everyone he met with respect. When asked about the incident in interviews, he would simply smile and say, "We all have the power to make the world a little kinder. Sometimes it just takes a reminder of what really matters." The legacy of that day lived on, not just in the transformed culture of Elite Motors, but in the countless lives touched by the ripple effects of one man's grace and another man's willingness to change. It stood as a testament to the idea that every interaction is an opportunity to either reinforce the barriers between us or to break them down, one moment of genuine human connection at a time. Years later, business students would study the Elite Motors transformation as a masterclass in authentic organizational change. But for those who lived through it, the lesson was much simpler. Treat everyone with dignity, for you never know when the person you're judging might be the one to teach you the most valuable lesson of your life. As we conclude this remarkable story, ask yourself, how many opportunities for connection have we missed because of our own preconceptions? How might our world change if we approached each person we meet with the same openness and respect, regardless of their appearance? The truth is, we all have the power to create these transformative moments in our daily lives. Whether we're serving customers, managing teams, or simply interacting with strangers, we can choose to see beyond the surface and recognize the inherent worth in every person we encounter. Remember, True class isn't about what you wear or what you drive. It's about how you treat others, especially when you think no one important is watching. Because sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. Thank you for joining us for this inspiring true story. If it touched your heart, please share it with others who might need this reminder about the power of kindness and the importance of looking beyond appearances. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of transformation and human connection. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves respect, and anyone can be a teacher if we're willing to learn.